What do you say, everybody? Welcome to the Bama Insider YouTube channel. It is a 2 for Tuesday. You just saw Andrew Bone and Trey Sanders, and now Kyle Henderson and myself will get together as we talk about the college football playoff top 25. That's right. We're going to talk about that. But before we get into that, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you being here, and we appreciate you more than you know. So hit the bell, thumbs up, just so you know when we have shows, and we try to do them live just about every single day. And tonight we're going to talk about the latest top 25 as far as the college football playoff rankings are concerned. But really what we're concerned around here about is the top 4, Kyle. We're keeping a close eye on how things are being released. And there you go. You have it on the screen right now. Not much changed since last week.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no surprise. I think that, you keep on saying we're talking about the top 25, but really we're just talking about the top 4. It's like nobody cares about the rest of those teams way back there. But I think when you focus in, can we sub out that bottom graphic so we can see Cincinnati's logo? There we go. So we got Georgia, Alabama, and clearly on a collision course. All Alabama has to do is win, one of these next 2 games, which we think they're going to do, and that'll, put them on a collision course with Georgia Bulldogs. I'm in the boat that I think that they can beat Georgia. I think I might be rowing by myself, so hit the thumbs up if you think that Alabama can beat Georgia. And then you have Oregon and Ohio State, and clearly, as they pointed out, the head-to-head. I think a lot of people forget that Oregon went to Columbus and beat Ohio State earlier in the year, and I think a lot of people feel now that Ohio State is probably the better team. But, I mean, those 2 teams played way back in, I think it was week 2 or something like that. So those are your top 4, and eager to kind of kick the ball around talking about the top 6 teams in the college football playoff rankings, or 7, as this graphic indicates.
Yeah, look, I was a little surprised that Cincinnati was that high after struggling, but they're 10-0, and their win against Notre Dame looks really good right now, because Notre Dame's only lost once. The other part of this that sticks out to me, Kyle, is Alabama's got to play Georgia, right? If they can beat Arkansas or Auburn, probably beat them both. They'll be favored in both games. But Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State are currently about to start a round robin, with Ohio State playing Michigan State this week.
Yeah, I mean, a lot has to go down in the Big Ten. I mean, all eyes are going to be watching Ohio State play Michigan State. I think that's going to be a great game. Looking at Mel Tucker right now, a former Saban disciple, talking about the big matchup with Ohio State. And depending on what happens in the Big Ten, it has a lot of implications on what's going to happen in the college football playoff rankings. The Action Network has kind of a great info tab if you want to go check that out. And it talks about Michigan, the Michigan Wolverines. And if they can beat Ohio State, the way it would work out theoretically is that Ohio State would still make the Big Ten championship and theoretically play Wisconsin. And then you would have Michigan with a head-to-head win over Ohio State and be on the same path that Alabama had in 2017, when Alabama didn't have to play in the SEC championship game, but still made the playoffs. Remember how pissed off everybody was when we were sitting around and Alabama didn't have to make the playoffs, and they don't make the SEC championship, and then they win the title. It was unbelievable. So Michigan, watch for Jim Harbaugh and former Alabama receiver coach Josh Gaddis to kind of play a role there at the end. But I mean, look, I know Ohio State's the favorite going up against Michigan State, but they got a gauntlet. They got Michigan State, then they got Michigan, then they got the Big Ten championship. So a lot left to play in the college football world.
Ohio State up to number 4. Now, they lost to Oregon earlier this year. So for the most part, you would think, okay, yeah, Oregon, of course, is going to be ranked ahead of them. But you look at Michigan, they lost to Michigan State, and they're still ahead of them in the standings.
Yeah, I know. That's and I think a lot of that is because of, Purdue, that loss right there. So, I mean, the Big Ten can drive you crazy if you try to figure it out. And you kind of look to the Big Ten standings and, the Big Ten East and the West. But I'll tell you what, the way that Ohio State has been playing lately, they look lights out. CJ Stroud up there with Bryce Young in terms of some of those younger quarterbacks that are favored to win the Heisman Trophy. They got a ton of weapons on the outside. Ohio State is a very dangerous team, but that loss way back at the beginning of the season to Oregon, still on everybody's mind. As you can see, this is Ohio State's schedule right here. Thanks for bringing that up. Big win over Indiana, big win against Penn State, Nebraska, and then that big win over Purdue, most recently 59-31. Mick, as we kind of pivot here, and we're talking about the Big Ten, but when you look, and I think I asked you this last week or the week before, whenever we did the playoffs, the show last time, do you feel that Ohio State today is a better team than Oregon?
Look, watching the way that Ohio State whooped Purdue, they scored 59 points, and Purdue's head coach was talking about how he felt like they did a good job of keeping them at 59. They're sometimes when you lose a football game, you get better. And I kind of feel like with Ohio State, they're a better team than Oregon, even though they lost to Oregon, way back on September 11th at their home stadium by 7. I just feel like they've just continued to improve. CJ Stroud's, second right now as far as the Heisman race goes. He's been great at quarterback. And the gauntlet's set up for him. I mean, look, they knocked off Purdue, who's been the giant killer. They killed them. Now they play Michigan State. They're probably going to win that one by double digits. They play Michigan. They're going to be favored in that game. The Big Ten championship game is going to be a letdown.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of just waiting to see what happens with this Ohio State and Michigan State game, because I'm not going to sleep on Michigan State. I think they got a very good running game. Mel Tucker, he might be up for one of the coaches of the year, right? And but then again, like I just said, that Ohio State team just in tons of weapons. The Henderson kid, no relation. One of the best running backs in the country. He's another young cat. Ohio State's gonna be scary for a long time, right? Just like Alabama. Everyone's talking about this Alabama team in a couple years. Those guys are just sophomores, Bryce Young and William Anderson, but kind of the same thing for Ohio State. So I guess we're gonna have to wait and see, what happens on Saturday. And kind of as you look to what Alabama has to do, it's clearly just went out. And I was listening to the ESPN broadcasters, and I think that it was Herbstreit. He feels that a 2-loss Alabama team is out. I kind of disagree with that because I put a lot of weight into the schedule that Alabama has played. The SEC schedule says a lot. I know they're coming off just playing New Mexico State, right? My alma mater. But I think that if Cincinnati was to play an SEC schedule, clearly they wouldn't be undefeated right now. And I think Cincinnati, being that they have SMU, I think they could lose that game. I think they could also lose to Houston. I think they will lose to one of those teams. And if they do get in and Alabama is a 2-loss team, I still feel, depending on if Alabama loses to Georgia and it's close, because they were also saying on ESPN just now, no one has played Georgia close. I think Alabama, if Georgia beats Alabama, it'll be close. They're not going to get blown out. I still, like I said in the beginning of the show, I still feel that Alabama is going to beat Georgia. And I think that would weigh a lot more than Cincinnati's, 7-point victory over Navy and barely beating Tulsa. So I put a lot on schedule of strength and still feel that Alabama, if they are to get to that point and they are a 2-loss team, they do lose to Georgia, that they should still be in over Cincinnati. And then if that pairs up Alabama and Georgia again for a 1 versus 4 matchup in the playoffs, you think the ESPN or the college football playoffs is going to turn away that money? No. That's a dream scenario, right? Because you want to see Kirby Smart. You want to see Alabama. As I've said a million times on this show, the only football team that matters is Alabama. That's why Nick Saban is on every single commercial. You see Kirby Smart doing Affleck commercials? You see Kirby Smart being highlighted on ESPN? No one even talks about Kirby Smart. Look at the job that he's done. It's almost a travesty that they don't highlight Kirby Smart more. The college football world revolves around Alabama. Nobody cares about Georgia. Look at how fast Clemson fell off. I don't even talk about Clemson. They're farting the wind, right? So everybody wants Alabama in. And thank you for posting the basketball score, because Alabama is taking it to South Alabama. I think they're a 22-point favorite. Alabama is just taking over the world.
Well, I like that you guys have the Georgia schedule up there, because I want to talk about Georgia. Georgia, is like a, 50-some% odds on favorite to win the national championship now. And, Alabama and Ohio State are the two speed bumps that could get in the way. Alabama obviously would play them first in the SEC championship game, but Georgia has not had a close game in a long time. They whooped Tennessee 41-17 this past week. It was close in the first quarter, and then Georgia took over. But when you look at their schedule, and I don't know. It's besides Clemson at the beginning of the year, they got a tussle there. I mean, look, I respect UAB, but I don't look at the schedule and think, okay, yeah, this is a tough schedule, but maybe that's because Georgia's been so good.
Man, look at that schedule. That's complete domination. I mean, seriously, I mean, geez, like this team, I mean, against Clemson, the 10-3, and we were trying to figure out who everybody was back in week 1, right? Like Georgia, I don't think they knew who they were. And same thing with Clemson. We didn't know how bad their quarterback play was going to be. But I mean, look at this. They're just completely dominated pretty much everybody that they've played. Remember that? I mean, there was a lot of hype kind of focused on that Kentucky game. And Kentucky's a good team. They're a good team, but I mean, they were able to, handily win that. Florida is a team that kind of fell off the rail. It is a favorable schedule, to be honest. After that, I think it's an easier schedule than we've seen, but not to discredit them. I mean, they're really good. I mean, I continue to watch Georgia and continue to be impressed, honestly, with the play of Stetson Bennett. And I think that he continues to get better. He's dangerous because he can also run, as opposed to JT Daniels, where he's more a pocket style quarterback. So Georgia has a lot of weapons clearly on the outside, and they're clearly the favorite. I mean, you look at I think they're like plus 120 to win the whole thing, and rightfully so. And we've been saying this for years and years and years. Like, if Georgia puts it all together, they can be the next, Alabama. They're a bad moon rising, and while they haven't been able to win a championship, beats me because they have every single thing that you could want. They recruit well. They have all the talent. They have all the coaches. Kirby Smart is a great coach, but guess who continues to beat him? Nick Saban. That's why I'm so confident that Alabama beats Georgia. And look, Georgia's the favorite. They might run away with this thing, but I've learned, I've learned a few things since I've lived in Tuscaloosa, and that's not to bet against Nick Saban. And we've seen Kirby Smart have Nick Saban in a headlock twice, and he's been able to wiggle out with a backup quarterback and beat Kirby Smart both times in Atlanta, Georgia.
Do you think that Georgia has a sizable enough lead over the rest of the teams in the field that they could possibly lose to Alabama and still make the college football playoff? And are they a lock as long as they take care of business in their next 2 games?
Yeah, I mean, they could sleepwalk through their next 2 games, right? I mean, what's up, Charles? Appreciate the super chat. Yeah, I mean, Georgia's 1,000,000% in. They're in right now. I mean, they could fast forward to the SEC championship game, lose to Alabama, and they're still going to be inside the playoffs. I mean, their overall body of work, how dominant they've been on both sides, really on the defensive side, in their running game. I mean, yeah, they're 1,000,000% in. So if Alabama wins, that just means that 2 teams from the SEC are in. And we kind of have to figure out, what happens with the Big Ten and if Oregon can win. And here's a team that we haven't talked about is Oregon. They have that marquee win over Ohio State. They did lose to Stanford. And it looks like they're going to be on a collision course to play Utah, not once, but twice, which you said earlier is going to be very difficult. And I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you look at the teams that are left. And, you start looking at it now and going, could a 2-loss Alabama team make the college football playoff, right? If they lose to Georgia, they win out the regular season and they lose to Georgia. The issue is that the Big Ten has 3 teams right now that are in that top 7, right? Well, they're going to have losses because they're playing each other. So let's just assume Ohio State runs the table, which is probably what's going to happen, right? So you're taking Michigan State and Michigan are out. I think Cincinnati's going to lose. Every week I watch them, and this week's SMU, I'll tell you what, as Jeff Cameron from our sister's channel, the College Sports Book says, pizza money. I'd throw pizza money on SMU just because I feel like Cincinnati's on upset alert. They haven't played good football since Notre Dame. SMU is capable of beating them. Houston's already in their league championship game. Cincinnati's not there yet, but those 2 could play. They could lose that game. So if they lose once, they're out, right? Oregon plays Utah this week. That's a very losable game for them. And you mentioned that they may play twice. I think Oregon would get them once in that, right? And then all of a sudden you're going, hey, wait a second. Alabama loses to Georgia in a close game, and 2 losses this year may get them in.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, especially if Ohio State, like you said, is able to run the table and beat Michigan State and Michigan, and then a ranked Wisconsin. And on ESPN, they were like, Wisconsin's going to be tough for anybody. No, they're not. Have you seen Wisconsin play?
Yes.
They're terrible. They're the worst team in the top 25 by far. I watched Wisconsin one time play, and I was appalled about how bad the Badgers are. Seriously, I think they're the
You were
worst.
offended.
Oh, it was sad. I think they're terrible. I never want to watch Wisconsin play again. It was just dismal. But I think Ohio State is very good. I think Michigan is capable with those running backs, and Michigan State, like as I said, are good. So if Ohio State wins out and Alabama is to play Georgia close, and I think a two-loss Alabama team definitely gets in over Pac-12 champ, even if Oregon is able to run the table, but they are giving precedence right here to Oregon over Ohio State. So I guess if it would come down to a 2-loss Alabama team versus Cincinnati. But like I said, I think Cincinnati is going to lose either to SMU or to Houston, but I guess we'll have to see. And I certainly think that Alabama is going to beat Arkansas and Auburn. So let's see what the College Football Playoff Committee does. I don't think they're going to put Cincinnati in over Alabama. Can you imagine if they do? I mean,
well, the schedule that Cincinnati has played, and look, the style points matter when you're Cincinnati, and they're barely getting by each week. Like after beating Notre Dame, they've gotten worse and worse. I get it. Their running back Ford has been injured, but at the same time, they still have Desmond Ridder. And for them to play kind of that weak schedule, which is like, I don't know, in the hundreds, right? The schedule strength is in the hundreds. You've got to win with style, and they're not doing that right now. Which could help them, though, is, if Oregon loses, get rid of Michigan and Michigan State. A team to keep an eye on is Oklahoma State. Oklahoma's all the way down to 13. But if they win a couple of these games at the end of the year and beat Oklahoma State, all of a sudden maybe they get back in the picture again. But I just feel like this schedule, as we look at Cincinnati, it's not good. They do play SMU. They play at East Carolina, and then they play Houston, right? So
up to the top. I want to look at this. I want to examine the Cincinnati schedule once and for all. Okay. Miami of Ohio. Okay. 49-14. Okay. Murray State. Oh my goodness. That was like is Murray State better than New Mexico State? Probably, right? Okay. So they and is Miami better than the Miami Hurricanes? I don't know. That might be a toss-up. So right now we're even at 2-2. Okay. So Indiana against who was Alabama's third team that they played? Wasn't it? It was Florida. Okay. So Alabama gets that. Then you go to Notre Dame. I mean, that's like the win that these guys are living off of, right? Then you take on the Owls. Holy cow. 52-3. Central Florida, well, they have Gus Malzahn. They're able to beat him 56-21. Oh, this one was crazy. At Navy. And how many games has Navy won this season? Is it 1 or 2?
Not many.
Okay, we're looking it up. 27-20. That was a thriller. And then they took care of Tulane, which I guess I was kind of impressed with that because Tulane almost beat Oklahoma, but then what again does that say, right? And then they played Tulsa, and that was a game that I think that Tulsa, right? Tulsa should have won that game.
Yeah,
should have. 28-20, and then USF against the Bulls, it was 45-28. Took care of them. These next two games, SMU will be challenging East Carolina. They'll beat those guys, and then they'll play Houston. So I certainly am not impressed with their schedule. But I do think they are, a win over SMU, I guess, would be mildly interesting. And I guess if they're able to beat Houston, we'll have to see what Alabama does.
Yeah, but I mean, it kind of sets up to be one of those seasons where you look at it. Navy, by the way, 2-7.
Okay.
So thanks, Trey Hannity. But it does set up for one of those years where you look at it and has anyone ever had better luck with this than Nick Saban?
Well, I mean, it helps to be the college football commissioner, right? Like Nick Saban makes the rules that we all abide by, right? He is the guy. But I mean, with that said, like people look, I'm not condoning Alabama's loss to Texas A&M. That was not, no loss is a good loss. but it's not like they got blown out, right? It's not like they went to one of the toughest places in the country and got blown out. Look, they didn't play well. Texas A&M, I think they were a preseason top 5 team. They're still
Right.
ranked in college football playoffs. Or the team that they felt that they could be, probably not because they lost, another game. But I don't think it's a terrible loss. It's not a good loss because when you cover Alabama, they lose, maybe once a year, and you want all the coaches fired. I mean, today it was funny. Sam Pittman, Arkansas coach, was asked. He was like, "Wow, Alabama's way down at number 2. Are they the same Alabama team? Are they vulnerable?" And Sam Pittman's like, "The same Alabama team that they've always been." I agree with that. I think that, this is good where Alabama is right now. I think it's good. Bo Nix going out was bad for Auburn, but I think that's good for Alabama because that guy is prickly to deal with, especially down there. Now they'll have to deal with TJ Finley. He's okay. But I think Arkansas will be a tough challenge. I mean, they beat LSU in overtime, and I know it's 22 points. It just seems that seems like too many points for me.
Well, I mean, when you look at Alabama, and we've talked about it, Alabama's running back situation right now is as thin as it's ever been. I don't remember since Nick Saban arrived looking at a thinner running back room. I mean, even the year that they lost all of those running backs, they still had Derrick Henry, right? In 2015. Looking at the situation right now, with a wide receiver and a linebacker playing running back, which both of those guys have done it in their past before, but Alabama's they've definitely got some issues at that position. Trey Sanders is going to be relied on heavily, I'm guessing, as the number 2 guy, although we never really even see the number 2 guy much. It's been all Brian Robinson. But I guess to me, that's the biggest problem that Alabama has moving forward, coupled with an offensive line that hasn't been consistent. But at the same time, they're still 22-point or 21-point favorites wherever you look over Arkansas, which was kind of surprising to me. But at the same time, I still feel like this team is, one play away from clicking, and look out, Georgia, if that happens.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. And Tony Tsoukalas, our team writer, is gathering up an article to talk about Alabama fans' biggest worry, kind of going to the backstretch. And for me, the biggest worry clearly would be if Bryce Young goes down, right?
Oh.
I think that's like the atomic. Okay, so I won't freak anybody out. But the more realistic worry with the guys that currently are on the roster is the offensive line. It's not the offensive line that we're accustomed to. Last year, you had Landon Dickerson, Alex Leatherwood. The year before that, you have first-round guys as well. The year before that, the same thing. This year, outside of Evan Neal, it's not what we're used to. And I think they are certainly underachieving. I don't think that they're very confident in the tackle position. And I think that also contributes to them not being able to run the football. Now, where that is bad and really worrisome is against a team like Georgia, because they have some guys on that team with the defensive line that are just completely fantastic. And I think, Kirby Smart's done a great job dialing up that defense. So if there is a really big worry for me going forward, I think it's Alabama's offensive line. A lot of people continue to point the finger at Doug Marrone. I don't know. I mean, maybe they just don't have the guys that they thought they were going to have. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of these younger guys or even the sophomores really cut in and start playing with that offensive line. They keep on putting Chris Owens there, which tells us that there's no one else behind him that has really stepped up to this point, which is concerning. So that certainly scares us. And we kind of look to what Brian Robinson did or didn't do against LSU. Who was that on? Was that against B-Rob, or was that because LSU did a good job beating Alabama up front? So when you look to cause for concern, that's certainly something that worries me deeply. But I think that Bryce Young, his elusiveness and his playmaking ability, and the fact that Jamison Williams and John Mechie have played at such a high level, I think that still Alabama, one of the top 4 teams, absolutely.
What are you looking for this Saturday when Alabama takes on Arkansas?
Health, staying healthy. I think right now you get to that point of the season, and as you were talking about, like the depletion of the running backs, I'm not too worried about that because I mean, Brian Robinson over the course of his career he's been very healthy. He's a person who really takes care of his body. He's a big, imposing back. I think he's a guy that could certainly carry the load and just be the back. Trey Sanders, I want to see how good Trey Sanders is in this number 2 role. I keep waiting for Trey Sanders to have that kind of blossom moment. We thought we were going to have it last year. We really haven't seen it this year. Still confident in Trey Sanders' ability. Behind him, Christian Leary, and then Demoy Kennedy. I thought Demoy Kennedy looked great, to be honest, in the short plays. Yeah, he looked like he ran angry. But I'm also looking for, for this defense to continue to tighten up. I know that everybody wants Pete Golden to be fired, but I think the fact remains that Alabama has a top 5 ranked defense along with Georgia. So if the defense can continue to dial in and do a good job stopping KJ Jefferson, and look, Sam Pittman is going to have a good game plan. I think, honestly, out of all the coaches who have taken over and kind of rotated within the SEC, I have a lot of respect for Sam Pittman. I think he's a very quality coach, and Arkansas is on the right trajectory. They have a very tough schedule. They did last year, they do this year, but I think with the pieces that Sam Pittman's been able to, have, I think he's done a great job, and I think they're going to be a very tough matchup for Alabama on Senior Day.
I agree with you. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that the overwhelming thought is that Alabama's going to roll right through this Arkansas team. But this Arkansas team plays tough on both sides of the ball. Their offensive line has been great. They run the football, which I don't know that they'll do that against Alabama. They're also really good against the pass.
Yeah.
And Alabama had 6 rushing yards against LSU. They won throwing the football. They're going to have to throw the football on Saturday.
Yeah, and they still, we keep saying this, right? We're like, who's going to be that third target that rises up? Because they continue to just target John Mechie or Jamison Williams. 2 games ago against LSU, John Mechie was targeted 13 times. Jamison Williams was targeted 13 times. That's not complicated. What do you have to do against Alabama? Stop those 2 wide receivers, get heat on Bryce, and, who's going to be that third guy to step up? I know a lot of people aren't confident in Slade Bolden's abilities. Jaleel Billingsley, I was glad that they went back to him and gave him that touchdown opportunity, but he hasn't been the Billingsley that we have anticipated. Cam Latu, he started off hot. He really hasn't been that hot as of late, in my opinion. He's not a game changer. But we're being hypercritical. And as Saban said after the game, there was a reporter who was trying to get Saban to be critical. And look, Saban was like, I just won 53-3. I'm not going to be critical of the team. And he's right. I mean, they're 9-1. They're at this point. They're ranked number 2 in the college football playoffs. Everybody has respect for these guys. We can nitpick on every single team, but the fact remains that Alabama is still in a great spot for the college football playoffs. And this team is yet to put it all together. And we may never see this team do that. But right now, this team controls their own destiny. And it all starts with taking on Arkansas and taking care of business this Saturday.
Yeah, look, when Nick Saban has teams that he feels like's getting too cocky, too confident, he'll ride them. And when he's got teams like this that are, maybe not quite as confident as he likes, that are struggling but still winning, he pats them on the back. And you look at this team, they're still 9-1, which is amazing because we kind of feel like they've lost a lot more than they have. Nick Saban, the master of motivation, and, you don't get as successful over the course of time like him without being really good at the mind games that it takes to lead. But yeah, I saw that press conference, and when that question was asked, I felt like Nick Saban was kind of excited to lay the smackdown on that reporter.
Yeah, and I don't like when people make it out to be like the media versus Saban. There's so many people out there that think like that the media hates Saban or that Saban hates the media. No, like they need each other. And Saban needs the media because he knows that his players read the press. And there might be a couple people out there that might try to get a rise out of Saban or whatever, but Saban, as you know, he uses the media to speak to his players, and that's kind of his platform. That's why ESPN loves to have Saban on, because Saban, is the GOAT. And Trey Sanders, I think, coined the term Saban Socrates, right? Isn't that what you told me? I love that. The Saban Socrates. I mean, the guy spits knowledge like we've never seen before. So all in for it.
Well, the Roadrunners are ranked, 23rd? Kyle, any comment on that before we get off here tonight?
Roadrunners. Who is that? UT San Antonio?
Yeah. How about that?
Look, I've been to San Antonio one time. I went for the Army All-American game a couple years ago. Had a great time. Hung out at the Riverwalk. Let me ask this in the comment box before we break out. Trivia: who from Alabama's coaching staff coached at UTSA?
Ooh, good question. They're still undefeated, by the way. So them, Cincinnati, Georgia.
They can play Cincinnati and for all the marbles, for all I care.
All right. Anything else before we close up tonight?
No, it's good. Just stick around for more of our coverage. We got the score prediction show tomorrow. We got Nick Saban tomorrow. We got tons of coverage coming your way. Definitely go rewatch Andrew Bone's recruiting show. He's got a nice update on Damani Jackson, the former USC commitment. And, don't stop right here on BamaInsider.com. Jarvis, you're right, man. Nice work. UTSA. Pete used to be down in San Antonio coaching with the Roadrunners.
There you go. All right, for Kyle Henderson, Chris Daughtry, Trey Hannity, I'm Mick Gillispie. Don't forget, next week we'll be back on 6 o'clock for the college football playoff reveal, the rankings. And we got all kind of stuff going on, as Kyle alluded to, as Alabama gets set to take on Arkansas this week, and a win gets them back in Atlanta to take on the Georgia Bulldogs. Then we can officially really start the talk with Georgia and then Auburn before that. So a lot of fun. Thank you guys in the comment section for hanging out as well tonight. You guys are fantastic. All right. Again, well, tomorrow night it'll be Kyle and Trey. They'll take your scores and make sure that you pick some good scores. Bama's a big favorite, so they'll do that tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Thanks for watching, guys.